Olá, contatados e contatadas, sejam bem-vindos a mais um episódio internacional de O Contato. Legendas disponíveis em português aqui embaixo no menu do YouTube. Agora a gente segue em inglês. Bom programa para todo mundo. Hi, welcome to another special episode of O Contato, or The Contact, as we like to joke in our special international episodes. Today we have another international guest. Before we go to the interview, I would like to ask you to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, like this video, and also hit the notification button so you don't miss our next contents. Follow us on Instagram. Probably you already follow us there, but if you haven't followed us, please. That's where we post our news, the next events we're taking part of, the newest episodes. Everything is on our Instagram. Today, I'm with my friend and podcast colleague, Gustavo Cornaccioni, and he will introduce us to our guest today. Gustavo, please.
Hello, my friends. Here we are once again in an international interview, and it's my pleasure to bring to our digital table Mr. Stephen Mera. He is a renowned British researcher specialized in paranormal phenomena, ufology, and anomalous sciences.
He is recognized for his long academic career, the creation of educational and research institutions, the production of literary and media content, and also his strong public presence as a speaker and communicator. As we will discuss in this episode, his work ranges from field investigations to content production and training of new researchers. He argues that the anomalous phenomena are not isolated, with UFOs overlapping with other paranormal stuff, for example, and that may suggest that there is a conscious intelligence, or that there are conscious intelligences, plural, behind these events. In interviews, Mera usually states that such intelligences seem to know our limitations, and we'll talk about it today. And they manifest in many ways that escape human manipulation.
Mr. Mera, it's
Hello. Yes.
Mr. Mera, it's a big pleasure, a great opportunity to talk to you. I'm very happy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure, and very interested to have a discussion with you guys.
Yes, well, thank you for accepting our invitation. We've been really looking forward for this chat.
Wonderful.
Yeah, this is our third international interview. We are a Brazilian podcast. We talk about Brazilian cases, but not just Brazilian cases. We one of our goals is to talk about theories, ideas, speculate about the cases, not just the story of the case, but what's behind it. And for the last 2 months, I have watching your channel. I have been watching your channel on YouTube, including your interviews and your talks with the demonologist Nathaniel Gillis.
Yes.
Yes, I have been. I think I watched all your videos with him. I already knew his work, and through him I met your work, and here we are now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, Nathaniel is a good friend of mine, and we've done some work together. And but I do have also a keen interest in Brazilian UAP history, or should we say UFO history. I was good friends with AJ Girard. He was a close friend of mine before he passed.
Yeah,
and I've lectured extensively on the Colares UFO incident, and I've also close friends with James Fox, who did the Virginia UFO case.
Yes,
Moment of Contact, the documentary. So I'm very aware of the history. And there's a lot more than that, obviously, but I'm aware of the pinnacle incidents that have taken place in Brazil, which has captured my attention because they're seemingly very significant incidents that have taken place in Brazil rather than other countries. I often ask the question, why does Brazil have so many profound incidents? And I always come up with a little bit of a problem answering that, to be honest with you. But it does have a very rich history of UFO incidents. It also has a rich in incidents of the paranormal and research and experiments in that field as well, which many people don't realize actually what current things and things that have taken place in Brazil, which has led us to a better understanding of the phenomena.
Yes, I think Brazilian history, with all the mixed culture between Africans and the native, the Europeans people came from Europe from here to here. We have a big mixed culture and many different interpretations of the paranormal. So we have a very rich history about it.
Yes.
So now I'm just going to start asking questions. All right.
Okay. Fire away when you're ready, guys.
All right. So I want to know, how did your interest in the unknown begin? Was it with parapsychology or with ufology first? Did you have an experience? How did all your interest about it started?
My interest in the subject was not derivative of my own. It was through experiences. I started with having experiences when I was 7 years of age. Some of those were UFO orientated. Some of them were paranormal orientated. And some I would put in a camp of other, just mysterious and profound, and didn't really know what they really meant. And I've been an experiencer since then. I still am. And multitude of things that happen in my life consistently. So it gave me a great opportunity to do the work I do, being an experiencer for sure. But it was basically I fell into the subject. My father had an interest in the subject, and he has also had some experiences throughout his life and still is. But at a very young age, I had such a passion to try and understand some of the incidents, experiences, encounters that I was having. I started to read my father's books at a very young age. Most of my friends were reading comics, and I was tucking into books like Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods and many other things. So yes, I did have an interest, but I wasn't geared for that as a work process. By trade, I'm an engineer and a telecommunications specialist. So I did some contract work for NATO in the UK, and as time went on, I started to ask more questions and doing research. And unfortunately, I kind of saturated the local library of all their books. But I still had this yearning to know more. So the only way to do that was to get out there and start investigating the subject. Now, I started investigating back in 1983. So now 41 years into the subject. As time's gone on, the investigations and research turned into doing lectures. And then I started tutoring on this subject. We have a very extensive course, which goes out digital format it's in Spanish and English at this moment, known as the UITC course, UFO Investigators Training Course. But it's the only course that actually does have the paranormal aspects in it, as it should, because the UFO phenomena has always had a link with the paranormal phenomena. Mm-hmm. So I don't like to divide the subjects. I see it as they're actually all contained together, and that people may witness various different things, but it's still kind of one topic. So that's kind of how I see it. But then obviously I got into television and radio, media, series. I was a spokesman for Fox TV in the US and Hammer Productions as well. which made a lot of horror type films and paranormal films. I continue to do that in areas now where conducting scientific experiments, advanced studies, which meant me traveling around the world, conducting those experiments, being part of a number of think tanks, and trying to advance the phenomena forward, because it's been very static for a very long time. And now we're into areas of very high tech and equipment, and a lot of new types of theories that are coming forward, some of them which actually have good grounding for evidence.
Yes, you said you were trained as an engineer, and later you immersed yourself in the study of these anomalous phenomena. Uh, how exactly was that leap for you, academically speaking? Did you propose some sort of study of these anomalous phenomena at the time in the academia? How people reacted to it, and how your colleagues viewed you at the time?
Okay, very good question. Well, of course, I studied in electrical engineering and alarm security engineering, electronics, and then into telecommunications. Then I was a contract worker for NATO in telecommunications. People that really knew me always knew I had an interest in this phenomena. Sometimes people that knew me very well would experience phenomena just as I do. People in my company can experience phenomena if they're in my company, of course. So that was beneficial, because people realize then that I'm not going daft, when I turn around and say these things are happening, when people and colleagues witness them as well. It wasn't so much as a giant leap, really, because I was outreached by the UK, and it was through the Ministry of Defence. They had a building with which were having some problematics, and they contacted me through an outlet in Manchester in the UK to ask me if I could perform a confidential investigation for them, to this corporate company, Ministry of Defence building. And of course, I took on board that, and there were 14 investigators at that time in my party who were involved in the investigation of that building. And I ended up on some type of public affairs network for businesses and organizations in the UK. And I did, for 16.5 years then, I conducted confidential investigations for corporate companies and city councils, private landlords, officers, lots of different places. And in the investigations were, like I say, for corporate companies, which were trying to deal with certain issues. Now, that led me into doing some work with the UK police, also London CID, and assisting them on a number of incidents which you could say were a little unusual. And then after that, I kind of fell into media. I started writing for television initially. And then one day somebody asked me if I would say something on screen, and that was opened up a whole doorway of me being involved on television. And I've done probably 300 or 400 different programs now. Some of them are series. I've done some acting as well for a number of TV shows and stuff. So I just kind of fell into it. It was no big surprise for anybody, because I was always quite verbal about, I have had some experiences. Now, I didn't care if people didn't believe me, because it's part of my life. And if they hung around with me long enough, they'd experience things. And that's kind of, I wasn't bothered. It was like the headway. I didn't go out looking for this. My father's an engineer, my grandfather's an engineer, and so on and so forth. So basically the idea was for me to follow that same path. And I had done. But the phenomena just kept dragging me back into this subject. And I think when the phenomena came knocking at my door at 7 years of age, my first experience, that it had a plan for me. And you could call this an initiated experience, because from the research that we've gathered now is that the intelligences behind the source of this phenomena, which is very varied, has the insight of knowing future events. and therefore an initiated experience might change your path to doing something which is more beneficial to them than it is for yourself, to be honest with you. But I've just followed the path, and I've followed the doors that open. So that path was created for me, I think, as far as I'm aware.
We have a list of questions here, but listening to you, many other questions start popping in my mind. And I just want to ask one question before we get back to the script.
Yeah.
I want to know your thoughts about this situation. There are there are many people who they live their lives and they don't experience nothing so unusual. We have supporters of our podcast. They love the subject. They love to talk about it, but they always say, "I never saw anything." Not only UFOs, but on the paranormal side of the topic. On the other hand, we have other people who had many experiences, or at least one or two.
Yeah.
What? How can we explain this kind of situation?
Okay. Good. Yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah,
It's actually very good.
I'm trying my best with my English. Okay.
That's okay. I completely understand where you're going with this. I believe when people want to know what is the difference between individuals that don't experience anything unusual
Yeah.
and those that experience quite a lot, I mean, there is clearly a defined difference between the two. And through the research and development through study programs now, I believe it's genetic. We now know that there's a high possibility that people who have profound experiences or even close encounters with various types of phenomena, that the forced perception of those experiences on the human brain can cause scarring of certain areas of the brain through the forced perception. And this area of the brain is what controls perception, to be honest. We can see elements of of something happening to them, a lasting condition, a lasting effect. Now, from the research gathered now, it's looking like there's a very strong possibility that that is genetically passed on. So when many people talk about, oh, my great grandmother was psychic and then my grandmother was psychic and my father was, and I am, and you think to yourself, well, surely it's got to be passed through genetics. And we're now starting to find possible evidence of that, because the effects on the human brain through experience seemingly are affecting those that have children, and the children have this condition, or if you'd like to say, they're more intuitive and experience more about life and phenomena than the average individual. And if we are following a genetic trait here, it would certainly make sense in regarding the many stories about how people's experiences have been passed down genetically to the children, grandchildren, and so on. And this might be the actual case, that we're dealing with some people who enter the program through experience, and that their genealogy is changed for somehow because of that, the genetics. And then their kin might be, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the only evidence that we've got at this moment in time to suggest why some people don't and some people do. Also, we have to consider, and there's evidence for this as well, especially regarding the UAP, that type of phenomena, is that seeing is not believing in the cases of UFO or UAP type phenomena. It is the other way around. It seems to be believing is seeing. Much like people who might have a religious sighting of an apparition are very unlikely to experience that if they don't have a form of belief in religion. So you have to have that first. Nobody I'm aware of is cited the Virgin Mary that wasn't somebody who had prior belief in the religion. So do you have to have that to see it? And it seems to be a bit like that. If you start to become much more of a believer in the subject. I believe it can open you up consciously to be having experiences with that type of phenomena.
You founded and led some important organizations, such as the Manchester's Aerial Phenomena Investigation Team and the Scientific Establishment for Parapsychology. What was the original purpose of these groups, and how have they evolved over time?
Good question. So if we talk about MAPIT, Manchester Aerial Phenomena Investigation Team, now, strangely enough, I had a sighting of an object that was over my house whilst I was playing in the back garden when I was about 12 years of age. And I saw the object in the sky. I'd had previous other experiences by then, though. And I told my mother and father, and they came out and saw it. It was a silver disc, and it was just hovering in the sky above my house, above our home. And my father had taken a photograph of it and had reported it to the local newspaper. A gentleman had contacted my father, and his name was David Rees, and he ran an organization called MAPIT. And it was that very organization I was to become the chairman of. You talk about strange coincidences and uncanny things. I became the chairman of MAPIT after David passed away. Now, MAPIT has been going since 1974. It's one of a few longest running organizations in the United Kingdom that studied the UFO phenomena. And I took that over in the late 80s after David had passed away and continued it. MAPIT has changed over the years. For some years, we specialized more in the paranormal. When we recognized there was a correlation between the UFO phenomena and some of the paranormal experiences that people report. And we've continued into the UFO phenomenon, progressed as time has gone on into the UAP and the new narratives which the US government are obviously talking about now. As for the scientific establishment of parapsychology, this is a private establishment. It is not public establishment. It was purely designed to assist corporations and companies privately in confidential investigations. That included writing protocols, how to deal with people that were complaining of paranormal disturbances whilst living in a rented accommodation. So I was dealing with the landlords themselves and regarding such matters, helping the police, CID, and numerous other things. That private establishment has been involved in some of the most significant paranormal long-term experiments and studies since 2003. And the gathered information and evidence has been shared with other parties and departments and establishments and in a number of think tanks across the world, so that we are sharing our data. Some of it does not fall under the public domain as yet, but some parts have been published and talked about, and I've lectured about them. I've also told people about some of the discoveries that we have made through those experiments. There is 17 experiments. 5 of the information to them have been released. There is still more to come, another 12. And but that SEP is purely a academic, scientific, private establishment, as opposed to MAPIT, which is for the public. So that's the differences between the two. And they both are continued running. SEP started in 1996, and I took over MAPIT in the late 80s, but that's been running since 1974.
Mr. Mera, we already touched the surface of this next question before.
Yes.
But one of your most discussed ideas is that UFO and paranormal phenomena are not separate, as you said before, but part of the same manifestation of conscious intelligences. Could you explain this view a little more? Could you elaborate about it?
Sure, absolutely. There's hundreds of different things when we've done our studies that link the two together. For instance, paralysis. The process of paralysis takes place in us naturally at night during REM process of sleep. When we're properly dreaming, the body is in REM, rapid eye movement position, and we dream and we sleep in that state, which is only for short periods of time. We are paralyzed. we have two things take place: output blockade to stop us from moving, and input blockade to stop us from hearing anything. And that paralysis is often reported during numerous experiences. Those experiences are the alien abduction or alien contact cases, where people wake up. There's, on most occasions, there's a small entities, or in their bedroom, there's lights and things, and they cannot move. In the paranormal sense, they may be a shadowy figure or some type of strange apparition seen. They wake up, they see it, they cannot move. The principles of the mechanism of paralysis is exactly the same between the alien abduction phenomena and the paranormal phenomena, and utilizing not what they are providing, but turning our own mechanism within us and our brains during sleep against us. It's just a matter of, applying information to the brain, because it's all brain signals. There's electrical signals going on in the brain. It's just a matter of pressing the right button. So what the phenomenon does, it seems to brings us into paralysis through our own process. It's a controlling mechanism, which is done in, like I say, paranormal and ufological. In other incidents, in poltergeist cases, when we've analysed apport phenomena, apportations, objects that mysteriously just turn up, reappear from some other place. When it's disappeared, it reappears. The asportation and the apportation. We have them analysed, and some of these apports have shown profound diathermic reactions. The diathermic reactions match to the diathermic reactions found in plants and plant traumatology, chemical and biological tests procedures. When a UFO has come close to the ground, it's damaged the plants, it's affected them in some way. When you analyze the plants, the very type of diathermic reaction is seen in that, as there is in apported phenomena, linking the paranormal poltergeist apport manifestation to the UFO manifestation and its field around it and what it affects. As time's gone on, and we've identified many, many incidents. In fact, there has been incidents of the crossover where you have strange ghostly apparitions of alien grey beings. There are people, it's always been there, right from day one, right from the early days when people were having UFO encounters. Sometimes after that experience, they'd have 2 weeks of poltergeist disturbances. We believe through the evidence gathered, and there's many, many things, that we are dealing with a source, and a source that can be ufological, cryptozoological, paranormal, demological. We believe these appearances, the variations in these things, is utilized by the same source, and it changes. The phenomena stays the same, but the mask is always changing through communications with NHI, non-human intelligence, through experiments, which have been achieved many times. They have informed us through conversations that they have the capabilities of changing their shape, the mask. They can abide by what we might think them to be. So many people have these experiences, and what they see might be down to what they believe they are seeing, as opposed to what they are actually seeing. And of course, that can vary, and it can also change. People together can have different experiences as well. So we do know that perception can be manipulated by phenomena.
This idea of, as you started to in your answer, about the sleep paralysis on the poltergeist phenomena and the sleep paralysis on the abduction phenomena, an idea came to my mind that we can have the same song. For example, Frank Sinatra's "My Way" played as a punk rock version and in a reggae version.
Yes.
It's the same stuff, is the same thing happening, but with a different scenario
Exactly.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, and
And that's the problem, because what we did as human, as you know, it's a natural thing we do as a species. We like to compartmentalize things into boxes, and we created this box called the paranormal. And then we also created a box called the cryptozoological and the ufological, the mystical, the spiritual, the supernatural. The list goes on. But we had all these different boxes created. But the problem was, when conducting advanced research into these areas, you'd suddenly stop and hit a wall, because the information you like looking for in the paranormal isn't there. It's in the ufological box over here.
Mhm.
So, and it's the same for ufology. People are looking at the ufological cases and saying, hang on a second, this looks to be paranormal, but it's not in this box, it's in the paranormal box. So what we tended to do is we decided to break all the boxes down, get rid of the boxes. We don't need the boxes. And we brought all the subjects together and referred to it as phenomenology. And now, when we're starting to find things, is because we brought the boxes together. So there is no paranormal and ufological and cryptozoological. They're all in one great big box. When you do that, you start to see the patterns quicker, and you can start to do the research easier. And you'll see a consistent amount of connectability and associations, enough evidence to say, absolutely, they are connected. Now, there has been some computer programs, and about 4 or 5 years ago, a system was put together known as the CRS system, artificial intelligence computers. And for 3 years, they put all the information into these computers, everything you could think of about UFOs, crop circles, poltergeists, hauntings, cryptos, Bigfoot, dogmen, everything, just piled everything, even into the mythical things like the Fey encounters and fairies, and goblins and demonology. And they put everything in. And after 3 years, they were hoping to press the button and that it will come up with some type of answer as to what does all this represent? What is behind all this? So they pressed the button expecting reams of information to come out. But really, there was only kind of 2 paragraphs, which really caught their eye. The first one is that the computer program saw so much connection between all these various type of phenomena that the computer said there was a source. Now, it didn't name what the source was, but it clearly has godly abilities, of course, because we've experienced that and people have reported these type of experiences. What we might refer to is profoundly high strangeness cases. So it believed there was a source responsible for all these because of all the connections. The second thing it also mentioned is that the source may very likely be able or have the capability of creating physiological constructs. Now, I'm a physiological construct. Everything around us is a physiological construct, but we know that it's metaphysical in phenomena. In other words, it's physical sometimes and then chooses not to be physical. This is what we see in the paranormal. We can see that there's information that an apparition walked through a solid wall, and yet the capability to be able to push you or pull your hair. That is changing its metaphysics. So with paranormal phenomena is metaphysical. Ufological stuff, exactly the same thing. We've got strange entities walking through walls, coming through the windows, coming through ceilings, and yet being able to pick an abductee up or contactee up or make contact physically with them. Again, choosing to be metaphysical. And now when we look at the UFO itself, the evidence supports that not only does it have qualities that might be interdimensional, but its metaphysical aspects can change at will. Sometimes they seem to be solid and they come down on ground and they leave marks on the ground. They leave physical traces. Sometimes they seem to fly into a mountain, into a volcano, into the hillside, into the ground, even into the water, into the sea, without no splash, without no wake. It's as if the water's not there for them, like passing aircraft with no wakes in the sky, very close proximity, about 20 feet away. The thing is that we've got to get our heads around what is real. What does that mean? What is real? Because something might seem to be real, it doesn't necessarily mean in a physical sense it is. And sometimes there seems to be plenty of evidence to support that we're dealing with a metaphysical phenomena as well. And this is where these all things sort of tie in together again.
When you say that these intelligences seem to know our limitations, what exactly do you mean with that? And specifically, when they choose to manifest the way they do, what does it mean, or what it could mean for us? Because I believe no one really knows that. Some people are closer to an answer than others, but certainly I'm not one of them. But what could it mean about the intentions of these intelligences, and in a more human perspective, what it would mean for us?
Right. What was the first part question? Because I know that was I got the second part. What was the first part? Did you say?
The limitations. You say that these
Limitations.
intelligences know our limitations.
Okay. When I say limitations, I mean about human limitations. It seems that this phenomenon, be it UFO or even other things like paranormal, they break all aspects of known physics. Now, the problem is that we live in a reality. This reality that we see around us, even you looking at your computer screen or the sunlight hitting it, at 600 million miles per hour, the photons. It's a perception that the brain recognizes and puts it into a construct of reality. Reality is constructed inside the brain through our senses. Now, this mechanism of phenomena can react with the reality around us, not only interface with us personally, but interface with the reality of this experience around us, the whole reality. Now, sometimes they get it wrong.
So they are interfering with the reality, not in our senses, in reality.
It's reality. It's everything we experience. We live in this reality, a box of reality. They are outside of this box and can manipulate the inside of the box. In other words, they can change aspects of things to happen. They can manipulate your experiences and things to come. Now, what happens when you trying to understand and wrap our heads around this construct of reality that we create in our brains is that we have limitations on what we can see, what we can hear, everything. In fact, we are probably one of the most limited creatures on the planet. I mean, even your pet dog and your pet cat can see and experience more than we can. They've got better hearing, better seeing. We are very, very limited. And we're so limited that the phenomena can operate outside around us. Tiniest little bit of what we perceive compared to what the phenomena is possibly capable of doing. So this phenomena, these types of things that are happening may very well be right under our noses, and have been all the time, for a very long time. As far as we know, it goes back even before before documented histories.
We could say they are almost part of nature.
Exactly. It is. It's all part and parcel of what we experience in life. This is not something new. We are trying to figure out something very, very old. And we've just lost our way. We're trying to relearn this. And now we're realizing that there's a whole soup of stuff around us everywhere. And I mean everywhere. And now we're looking at this through quantum imaging and discovering that the very much likely phenomena is everywhere and can pop in at will and interact with anybody it chooses to do so. Now, that's a problem when it comes to trying to disclose information. What you are going to get is some forms of blocks or small chunks of disclosure showing interest in the subject. But are you really going to get, because the people that I'm talking to up at the top levels, they're saying, we can't disclose this. We can't just drop this onto the laps of physicists and scientists and even the general public, because the complications in regarding the ecology of the earth, the economy of the earth, and religion and belief will be so impacting. It's got to be delivered over such a long period of time. And now we're starting to see the initiation take place. And this initiation is the narrative change from ET to NHI, from extraterrestrial to interdimensional. You're going to get more and more and more of this coming out at the top levels, even at the Pentagon level now. They're using all these terminology. We've moved away from the old narrative. Why? Because there's not enough evidence to support that they're extraterrestrials traveling from other planets visiting Earth. Yes, there's a few things around. But considering how many sightings there are on planet Earth in one 24-hour day is tremendous. And we are not seeing a superhighway of traffic.
Yeah.
It seems that they have the capabilities of jumping in to our reality and jumping out of our reality. And that's a real big problem in regarding how we're going to investigate these things.
And to feel safe.
And to feel safe, exactly. Yes.
I always use I use a metaphor when I try to speak about it. If I every morning I go out my home's door, and I see the same guy every day walking on the sidewalk every morning at 7 a.m. It's much more likely he lives in my town, in my city, close to me, than he lives in another country. If I'm seeing him every day, so it's close. It's not coming from far away. One listening to you, many questions come to my head, and I have to pick one. We have it's hard to talk about what's the purpose behind all of this.
We don't know what the purpose is.
Yeah, I think this is the hardest question to do. But
it really is difficult. But what we do know is that it's been interacting with humankind for forever in numerous different ways. Sometimes interpreted as religious things, sometimes interpreted to be demonic type things, bad things, or paranormal things, or strange creatures, or ufology, all sorts. But a very, very long time, and we don't know. I think we are the product of a test, long-term study on humanity, and not just study, but interacting and shaping and modifying in some cases. And I think this has been going on for a long time. But the reasons why, I don't know.
Yeah, I sometimes I think that maybe, I don't know, but as I said before, maybe they are just part of nature, and I don't know the purpose of nature. I don't know the purpose of a natural phenomena. Maybe they are part of nature.
Difficult.
Yeah,
it's very
but
difficult.
one thing that I would like to ask you, another thing, we have some cases with good contacts. People have healing experiences. In the other hands, we have mutilations, and it's interesting to see that in South America we have mutilations. In North America we have mutilations, but they're very similar. But the victims, the specimens, are different. In South America, it's not about cattle; it's more chickens and small animals. But it's this, and I started to think if that's some kind of geography element to it. Like we have a polar, you won't find a polar bear hunting in the Sahara, but we will have bears around the world. They behave, they're kind of the same, but with some differences.
Yes.
Maybe we are experiencing this.
Well, the experiences do differ slightly to different countries, but that's because of cultural change of belief. I mean, you don't have to look at the phenomenon. All you got to do is look at the differences in people, because the people, it drives phenomena's type of phenomena very often. In some cases, when information comes out about some bad experiences, there'll be a chain of events that continue because people hear about it, believe it, and think, oh, well, if I see something or witness something, it's going to be type of the same thing. It's very likely it would be, because of, the phenomena has a very good way of learning its victims. It knows what they're thinking. It knows how to change its perception to them, to what they might think it might be. Children have reported animated toys. Some people have claimed to have seen big giant owls watching them, or big rabbits sat in the middle of the road. It was never a big rabbit sat in the middle of the road. It was something else, but that's how they perceived it. They can change how they can be, to be perceived by forcing altered perception on you at the time. Do we ever see the true face of the phenomena? I don't think so. I'll be honest with you. I don't think we do. I think even the alien grey, which has come to scene, is most derivative of the aliens now, because of its drive, its imagery, its plantation into the mind of humanity through the internet, radio, TV programs, movies. We just can't shake it. I mean, where's all the Space Brothers gone? The human-looking ones. And before that, it was something different. And before that, it was the lizards, the reptilians, and many different types of shapes and forms. There's actually thousands of variations. Now, some people might say, oh, well, there's only 4 types of aliens. Well, no, that's absolute rubbish. There are thousands of reported variations. But why do they have 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 arms, a nose, a mouth? Why are they built in the same process, a genetic process, as the human, as a bipedal? All we've got to do to see something alien is go to the bottom of the North Sea, because the environment is changed so much just on planet Earth and the North Sea, that the creatures down there, they don't look nothing like humans. In fact, the opposite. So science would say, because of the variations in planets and the type of gravity and the chemicals, the heat, temperature, all sorts of things, we're going to have a cocktail of very strange things, if we ever witness intelligent life. Our problem is, though, that's not the case. We always tend to be seeing these strange bipedal type creatures that vary in the thousands, but all do the same thing and all got the same technology and pretty much give the same messages. If we've been told time and time again, there's a ruse that, oh yes, I come from this planet, I come from that planet, I'm an interdimensional being, I'm an angelic being, I'm from a parallel universe, I'm a scientist from another planet. The list goes on. Where do we come from? We come from the moon. No, we don't. We come from Venus. No, you don't. We come from Mars. No. Well, where are you coming from? We're coming from further out and out and out into space now. Mm-hmm. We're not getting the truth. They don't want to reveal. They don't want to disclose. They're just happy to go about doing their agenda, which they've been going on for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to land on the White House lawn. They don't need to, because they know what's going on in the White House. I'm guarantee that. But the thing is, it doesn't act like that as we expect it to. So we can't fit it into the box of what we would expect, because it just won't work. And sometimes they do get it wrong. A technological craft can come down to the ground and, and people will see it. And then all of a sudden they notice, but why has it got 1930s portholes and round it and little windows and rivets?
Yeah.
The perception's been altered. It's not quite got it right. These mistakes do happen regularly. We've got to understand that it's what I said earlier. What is real in our world? We'd say, well, if I can see it, it's real. Well, no, not necessarily, because we're dealing with things which is beyond the sciences, beyond the physics and understanding that we hold in this reality. We've got to try and work out about things beyond that, outside space and time, outside of our known reality, interdimensional, quantum mechanic, and things like that. We've got to get our heads out of this area of thinking everything must lie within the box that we try and understand and try and work it out. We can't, because the information that we need doesn't lie in the box that we have. It lies outside it.
Yes. 2 quick comments I'd like to make. Number one, you said that they already know what's going on in the White House, so they won't land over there. That's some kind of very useful information they could share with us, because most of the world doesn't really understand what's going on in the White House right now, but let's leave it aside. And the other thing is, usually when we talk to international guests or in interviews like this, or chatting online, whatever, we usually notice that there is a, a great difference of the percentage of hostile contacts in South America or Latin America. It depends on how you view things geographically, but usually in South America we have more hostile contacts than in the
Mhm.
rest of the world, and we believe that's not some sort of cultural or informational bias, because hostile cases happening in other places of the world are also reported. They also make to the news sometimes. They make it to the UFO media, but it's not the same proportion that we
No.
see in Brazil or in neighboring countries. How do you think this, not necessarily the geographical factor, but the idea that there is an extremely hostile contact in one place with one specific witness, and then you have this super friendly contactee in other side of the world, or even sometimes in the same city? Because I think geography itself doesn't seem to be a problem, especially if you consider that they are metaphysical or interdimensional or whatever word you would like to use. So geography won't really be a very important factor, but what they do, the way the contacts happen, the way the phenomena manifests itself, seems to be very, very different from one kind of case to another.
Good question. Hi. Okay. The best way to put this is an analogy. We are all God's children, and if God was talking to us, then and we were going about our business, some people might say some people we had a bad experience with. Some people might have a terrible experience with somebody. Other people might have a wonderful experience with somebody. But we're all the same. We're all doing and growing as humanity. However, when we're talking about phenomena, we believe in one source phenomena is being delivered in multiple ways. Now, when we talk about South America, let me just say, South America is the most prominent place on the planet where uncontrolled, unprotocoled contact experiments have been taking place with non-human intelligences for quite some time. When I say uncontrolled and unprotocoled, they're not protocoled. In other words, they just dive straight in, regardless of any consequences. And there are consequences to actions. Always has been. The thing is, sometimes it can invoke not something new, not something different, but just a different reaction. And those are just various agendas. I know that we might have some terrible things take place. You talked about, animal mutilations, animal killings earlier. Gustavo mentioned that take place all over the world.
Yeah.
And it's been going back a long time, long before we had the technology to blame man for this. I'll tell you now. That I know for certainty. But even worse things have happened to human beings. I'm not going to get into that because it's a very dark area and not a subject really, which is probably for best for the channel. But what I will say is that horrific things do go on and they get swept under the rug. Yes, there is the darkest side to this phenomena, and there is the lightest side to this phenomena, but it's a double-edged sword. It's the same sword, but it's just double-edged. People can go into it with special intent to manifest a demon and could be successful. The same person with a different intent might manifest an angelic being. The phenomena delivers, dependent on the intent and the circumstances of what's been taking places in those environments. Sometimes it's completely tied into the geological location, which are positive or negative magnetic regions. There's an association between manifested phenomena and that. So it seems that we're dealing with agenda. It's just like dealing with police officers. You know, some people will have a bad experience. Some people will say, oh, they were very helpful and had a good experience. At the end of the day, they're all doing the same job. They're all doing, but it's agenda and it's how it seemed to be. Some things might seem to be very, very bad, and which they are, and some things are very, very good, in which they are. But I think it's just dealing with one thing, doing many, many different things, and that's designed to meet the needs and attention of the various thinking patterns, belief systems of humanity, and it can deliver in this multi-fashion area across the whole planet. If you imagine the scale of operation here, could do this across the whole planet and interface with so many different people in so many different ways.
Yeah, we are talking about a control system. What's the difference between a control system, an idea like that, and a simulation?
The simulation and the control system. Okay, so
I don't know if that's a good question, but it.
I know I understand.
I'm always trying to figure this out, because just 1 second. When Eduardo talked about a good experience over there and a bad experience over here, it's like saying they're opposites. So people tend to think that they're two different things, and we are talking about that's just one big thing, and all these experiences are connected to it. So one when we talk about someone summoning a demon, I think, well, okay, does that demon exist, or is like I am inside a video game and I am choosing to go to that to play with that character?
Exactly. Well, we get back to this same thing again. What is real? Because if a demon manifests and swipes out at you and injures you, and you'd say that's a real experience.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's real. But then it can happen for an angelic. It doesn't matter which one it is.
Yes, but what I'm trying to figure out is, does that demon or that angel or that gray alien, I don't know, does it has a conscious, or is just we and this other thing?
Okay,
in the universe.
Right. Now I got you. I understand you, Gustavo. Okay, so yes, they do have a conscience. Yes, they are clever. Why? Because we know, because they evolve, they learn, and through us and experiencing them. So they change the methodologies sometimes, to avert things, and try and get round problems. So yes, we know it's a ever learning process for them. However, they are just as dealing with a physical being with a conscious and delivering what they want to deliver, but it's still a construct. It's a construct of intelligence, yes, but it's that construct. It could be a little anything. It could be anything, but it's the same intelligence that's being provided to create the construct, and we experience it within the construct of our reality. Our reality is a construct. It's not, when we say real, everything has a limitation. It's real of what we know. And then when we get a little bit further, we go, oh, well, we've just realized that this is manufactured in a bit. Well, then it seems real, but it's not real. Do you know what neuroscientists call reality? A hallucination. That's what neuroscientists call it, because they know.
Controlled hallucination. Yeah.
Yeah. They know that it's not real. But to us, we have to accept some grounding here and say, well, we have to, otherwise we just go crazy. We've got to have a realism of what is real within our reality, and if we can touch it, feel it, experience it, we would say it's real. But then we can do that with the paranormal, the ufological. We can touch it, see it, feel it. So therefore it's real until it doesn't want to be anymore. They don't have to play by the same rules we do, because we're stuck in a box and they're outside it.
We spoke.
Thank you very much.
I hope it makes more sense in the future, and that's what I would like to talk about. We spoke briefly before about the academic view of this this kind of phenomena. And do you think that the mainstream academic science is getting closer or getting further, or is just standing still in the same place from seriously investigating this kind of experiences?
I believe many academics throughout the world are moving closer. Absolutely. The problem is that they're not shouting it from the rooftops. They're not even going public with it. And I don't blame them, to be honest with you. I mean, there's things that, I'm under 17 NDAs at the moment. There's plenty I can't talk about. But I can say that there are scientists, physicists, astrophysicists, aeronautical specialists, many, many different scientists from many different places all over the world, which are in the know and understand a lot more than the average individual in the public, because the information is not shared. And it's not shared because it's too big a pill to swallow. UFOs is not a big pill. If it was simply that they were traveling from the vast distance of space to see a little old us on planet Earth, we would have had disclosure years ago. They've known for a long time. This is nothing new. They have known for some time that he's not dealing with something that we can explain or understand properly, especially even just space-time, understanding that, and that how the effects on apports that can spontaneously age after arrival up to 500 days per day, speeding ahead through time, just because it's apported from a different time basis. It's catching up and it ages 500 days per day. We've got to get our heads around interdimensional, places, holes, like experiments within CERN, for an example, up to 18 dimensions now. We know that they exist, and we're trying to do experiments, putting things through, putting things out, and seeing what happens to them. Sometimes there's rapid aging, and especially in cell growth and cell aging, should we say. So there's lots of things we're trying to get our heads around. There's a lot of things I can't say, but there's a lot of things that I can say, and people have come forward and are trying to tell the people in a roundabout way that it's interdimensional phenomena. It's an intelligence driven by the source. It can be what it wants. It can be the UFO, and the people or things within it is part and parcel of the phenomena. It's not just occupants flying a vehicle. It's part and parcel of the same phenomena. And the process of this is that sometimes the phenomenon is geared to individuals. Sometimes they gift humanity with technology because they want to steer us into better technologies, which is we're doing because we can see the advancing technology has gone crazy. It's actually superseding spiritualism and consciousness, to be honest with you. And now we're heading into the world of AI. But when you start to look back, do the history and start to look back and say, where did rocket science come from? Where did quantum mechanics come from? Where did these certain inventions come from? They were gifted through downloads from them, while being awake, downloaded information, just like Stephen Hawking did, many, even rocket scientists that got information to help them get to the moon. Even Dream downloaded information, or direct communication with them to telling them. Now, this is nothing new. It's been going on since ancient times. And people said, well, it was gods that were talking to them, and not just our God, the Christian God. It was the gods of India, the gods of Africa, the gods of China. It was all their gods as well. There's been communications and source and driven humanity and technology. Now, we are receiving these things. And up at the top level, they refer to as gifting fields, where the phenomena is quite happy to bring down a UFO. You can't tell me they're flying the distances of space to suddenly explode midair when they get to Earth, or parts fall off them, or they break down. No, none of that, because it's a ruse. What it does do, though, is quite happily crash into the ground, sacrifice the biologics to give the technology to humanity to utilize. But it's being utilized in closed areas. And it's only talked about in skiffs, where these things are being used and technology is being utilized and manufactured, incorporated into the military industrial complex and the aerospace systems, which has been going on for a long time, especially Lockheed, which you might know actually a little bit about, Eduardo, anyway. But it's everywhere. It's seeped within our history, and we still go back like children sometimes with begging bowls and saying, what can we do to get something else? Can you make us more successful? Can you make us, better, in our technologies? And sometimes there's cooperation taking place. So it does seem that, you can praise them, you can pay homage to them, which people have been done for many, many long time. Even when they went to the moon, the first flag in the moon was not the American flag. It was a Masonic flag. The Masonic ritual was done prior to that.
Yeah.
Because it's a homage.
I didn't know that.
Yes, you got to pay homage to them. You don't get anything for free these days.
We could do a series of episodes here, because for every question we make and every answer we get, we think of another 5 or 6 questions we could make. So Gustavo and I, we wrote in a script here with some questions based on your experience, some of your media appearances, your books, and we barely followed it. And in fact, most of it's still untouched. We simply ignored most of the things we wanted to ask,
So
because
we have to make another interview.
Well, listen, guys, I'm always happy to come back on. All I've got to do is just let the agents know, and we can sort that out. I can come back on as many times as you want. If you want an information, there's a lot of things, and it happens all the time. One thing leads into something else. It's like when I'll give you an example. We had communications through an experiment in 2015 with non-human intelligence, through the process of science, through spiritualism, through the poltergeist stuff, into communications with things that are not of our realm or reality, non-human intelligence. And we asked if we could ask them a question about heaven. And when we pass away, when we die, do we go to heaven? And you know what the response was, guys? The response was, for those that make it. And I was sat there thinking, I've got about 100 more questions now. So I completely understand where you're coming from. It's the same process. So I'm happy to do more on your show, guys. But it's always going to produce more questions, always.
Yeah, but in order to steer us to the end of this episode, very quickly, what was the most remarkable or most interesting or most different case you have investigated? And regarding your own experience, have you ever witnessed something that truly challenged your understanding, defying logical or technical explanations?
Absolutely, yeah. And I've been quite vocal about this over the years. There's some things I haven't talked about, but some things which I would consider extreme. Joining investigations and researching experiments carried out in all over the world. Some of those places are high mountains, desert regions, all over the place. Usually where the footfall of humanity is a bit low, where the phenomena seems to lie. The national forests as well. In Palm Springs, some years ago, we identified a particular location for being very active for UAP manifestation. All the science and the work that we'd done proved that this location must be a hotbed for activity. And like any other good science work, you've got to prove the hypothesis. So we ended up having to go there to see if the results of the information we got were correct. And whilst we were there, a huge object manifested in front of us, the team. And we were transfixed. It put on a light show of communication. It was incredible. I'd never seen anything quite like it. I mean, I've seen some things in my time, but this was something special. They were beautiful lights, beautiful colors, like Arca's welding lights, but beautiful colors. And you were locked on. You were like in awe. Whilst this is going on, what we were unaware of is that they were already on the ground behind us, about 60 foot away. When we realized they were on the ground behind us, we were looking in it. It's a magician's hand. You look over here, not round here. When we realized they were on the ground behind us, the whole body reacted in a way I can only say waiting to panic. It was not a sensation of panic, but the body reacted, like survival sense kicked in. You know, the hairs all went up on your arms. You had this feeling of, oh, something's not right. And we hot-tailed it out of there, be honest with you. I mean, we do have our limitations, of course. You know, we don't know what to experience, with the phenomenon. It's certainly demonstrated it can vary its types of experiences whenever it wants to. So we didn't overstay our welcome, let's say that. So that was quite an interesting experience. But then on another side of the coin, in Seattle, in the US, during an investigation of a paranormal nature of stuff of disturbances in locality to a mortuary, there was a very unusual tree. It was a horrible tree, to be honest with you. It looked like a tree straight out of that Poltergeist movie that Steven Spielberg did. Awful, twisty, horrible tree. But there were strange disturbances around this tree. And during that experiment, we heard voices bellow out from the area of the tree. Deep, very loud voices saying, "Kneel before us. We want you to come with us. You can levitate. Kneel to the ground." And I backed off. I've got a scientific mind and I'm very curious, of course, but I do have a limitation, and everybody should have a healthy limitation. And I didn't realize, but at the time, that my mind was saying, stay and go forward. But when I looked down, I realized that I was taking steps backwards. And I didn't even realize I was moving backwards until I looked down. And then I clicked. I realized something within me, in my very soul, said, go back. Do not engage. So I did. I walked away and I sat back in my vehicle watching the experiment carry on. Whilst I'm sat watching the experiment, the console between myself and the chair next to me in the car, in the vehicle, was pens and things, and they were moving around on their own whilst this was going on, and the temperature plummeted to could see my own breath in the summer whilst this was going on. That's an experience I won't forget. So when you talk about extremities, it's both sides of that coin. You know, some things I've been struck by poltergeist phenomena. I was injured quite badly. There's been multiple different things I've experienced. But like I say, I have an inquisitive mind, but I also know where that line lies. And it's too problematic sometimes to take the step over that line, because we need more scientific data. We need more answers, maybe instrumental detections, whatever, before we actually commit ourselves to doing something which we might not be a good experience.
Okay, so I think for our last question, we'll have to come to a close here. But before, it was a great pleasure. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Gustavo.
I hope you enjoyed it too.
I did, yes.
So maybe on the next opportunity we can share with you. Today we were more interested in listening and learning, but
Yes.
on the next time we can share some experiences and stories from Brazil.
Yes, that'd be lovely. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, but for the last question, you told before about disclosure, or some kind of disclosure, and that's something beginning to happen. Why now?
Okay, that's a great question. You know, I knew myself and my colleague Barry Fitzgerald, who I work along with on many projects, which we traveled the world doing this for some time. We were aware the narrative change was going to happen about maybe almost a year before it did. And we knew it was coming. And the reason why is because there's been pressure applied to the Pentagon, the UFO task force, the Pentagon UFO program, and then onto Arrow, which is the Pentagon new UFO program.
Yes.
The pressure from the general public for answers, as well as onto NASA. NASA were forced into conducting an investigation into the validity of extraterrestrial intelligence. And they concluded after their study, and this is going back now 2 years, in 2023, I think it was, September, they concluded that even though that they know UFOs are seemingly being seen and recorded by not just military personnel, but many authorities all over the planet and the public, they know they exist, but there's not enough evidence to support that they are extraterrestrial in origin. Now, Arrow, 2 months later, being pressed by the general public and US citizens, also had to conduct an investigation and concluded exactly the same thing. There is not enough evidence to support they are extraterrestrial. So now the question is then, well, if they're not, then what are they? And this is where the new narrative comes in. It's not ET, it's NHI, non-human intelligence, because there's so many thousands of variations of these things. And it's the same for the craft. In fact, in 1977, Project Blue Book, the variations of UFOs they had on data record exceeded 10 million. 10 million different variations in 1977. There is none. Very rarely do you ever see any of exactly the same. There's a variation each and every time. Now, the thing is, there's no blueprint. There's no base model for a UFO. Not like building vehicles and cars and planes is base models, but no, there isn't. Anything goes. Now, the thing is, now because this narrative change is happening, we now know in regarding disclosures that there is two different things going on. There is the real stuff going on in the background, and is the public stuff going on, which is what is devised for the public. Just like Project Blue Book, people minded for an answer from the US government. So they devised Project Blue Book and say, oh, don't worry, we've rationalized this, it's this, and that. When in fact, there were many things which they couldn't rationalize. But it was just to give the general public some feedback to say, we're trying to help you. When really it's a bit of a ruse. Now, that's exactly the same thing happening now in regarding the people that you might have, the Pentagon. You might have got whistleblowers coming forward and saying, oh, yes, I saw this. Here's a photo. I read this report. Here's the document. We don't need any more documents. We don't need any more videos. We don't need any more photographs or radar data. The mountains and mountains we've got of this for over 90 years. And it's there in the old workings of the UFO research programs. From the
it's
government.
more a political decision than a scientific decision.
It's a more political reason, absolutely. So it's to keep us happy, the general public, while this is going on in the background. And it's not getting out much to the general public because we really don't know how to tackle it yet, to be honest with you. Some bits, yes, but other bits is a bit, you've got to try and figure out even to your mind, can you even accept that understanding, So this bit is a comfortable bit, and it's got to be delivered to the general public because the general public say, we demand answers. So they are giving them answers, but it's not the whole thing. It's just a little piece of the pie, which doesn't seem to get any further because when you start to get into the Pentagon and these people talking about things, when it starts to get really interesting, it goes into a skiff and you don't hear anything then. Because
once you say something on the skiff, you can't say it anymore.
That's exactly. So it's problematic, as you can see. It's going to take a very, very long time to get all this out.
Mr. Mera, thank you very much for participating with us in this episode.
Thank you.
Again, we need a series because this we could go on forever here. The whole the academic section. We had an entire section of questions regarding the academic view. We barely touched it. The disclosure thing, your own experiences, all this kind of stuff. Maybe hear more about your views about Brazilian cases. You are well versed in them. And well, anyway, it's been
Absolutely, yeah. I look forward to coming back on the show. Just let me know, keep in touch, and I look forward to doing that again.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and we will certainly have another chat like this.
Wonderful, thank you.
Gustavo?
Thank you, Mr. Mera, once again. I think you will receive many more emails from me from now on.
I look forward to it, and I look forward to hearing from you guys, and you telling me a bit about why you got into the subject, and what
Yeah.
things that you know. So I look forward to that in the future as well, guys.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank
Just
you.
cool. When you open Gustavo's emails, okay, read them, fine, but just don't click anything. Okay, it's well,
Okay, I'll make
okay.
sure.
Well, to our viewers, especially our international viewers, because as it turns out, we do have a small international audience. Thank you for joining us again, and do all the kind of things that YouTubers usually ask you to do, like subscribe, hit the notification buttons, and blah blah blah. This kind of thing. And don't miss our next international interview, which we are already trying to schedule and bring to you on the channel. Thank you and bye bye.